Nisiga. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Monday. Today, we are going to be jumping in and talking about how to start living your dream. I know many of you out there are trying to find what your dreams are, or you're kind of stuck and not able to take action. And so today's video is really going to help you learn what your dream is and to take action. So today I have Kirsten with me. She is from Australia, so it's morning there. So thank you for jumping on. She is amazing. Yeah, you are so amazing. I've been following you on Instagram. I'm like, oh, this woman's powerful. I need to interview her. So that's how we got here today. She is so amazing. She has her own podcast called Ground Up, and she's an empowerment coach. So thank you for joining us today and being able to be here as a beacon of light to share your experience. And so can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you do and the work you do and love?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you all. So as you mentioned, I'm from Australia. My name is Kirsten Morrison, and I'm an empowerment coach and breathwork practitioner. So I work specifically with women to support them to break up with their inner critic, to let go of the self-doubts, to heal all of the inner stuff so that they can claim their power and step into their purpose. And I do this through coaching and breathwork. And the reason that I do both of these modalities is because there are blocks in our mind, in our subconscious mind. There's a lot of mindset required to live your dreams, to step into your purpose. But there are also blocks in our body. So your body is like a living library of experience. So breath work helps to shift those as well. So it's about working in tandem with the mind and the body to completely free yourself in order to move forward.
That is beautiful. I'm like, I love that. You have to embody both of those things, or, you're not going to move forward. You're not going to take action. And sometimes it's scary. And so you do need that breath work. So that's amazing that you're combining them. That's beautiful. So in your experience, by combining them and thinking about your journey, how has that helped shape you?
So for me, probably some of the most powerful shifts that I've had is through the somatic work, which is the body work. And, mindset is obviously incredibly important because your thoughts control a lot of your actions and the way that your world is shaped. And a lot of that is the subconscious mind. It's a lot of subconscious thoughts that drive us. So working with the mind is incredibly important as well, particularly to support your subconscious mind to maybe reshape the relationship it has with defining moments that we've taken on as incredibly important that define our limiting beliefs. So working with the mind is incredibly important. But I noticed that with the body work, there is a very rapid level of freedom and an incredible amount of empowerment that comes from being in our body, because we're quite disconnected from our body. We're in overwhelm a lot, up in our heads, overthinking, overanalyzing everything, procrastinating, self-sabotaging, all the things. And when we can actually just drop into our body and create some space, the energy that comes from that is so powerful. And for me, that has been some of the biggest shifts. It's changed everything. Like, I definitely know that I wouldn't have been able to step into my business and step into my power without freeing up that space in the body, because physiology is a huge part of it as well. So breathwork has literally changed even my posture, the way that I hold myself. It's changed, the energy that I have, the connection that I have with myself. It's deepened my level of intuition, and it's just given me more of a freedom to be myself and be embodied, which I think is quite an overused word in personal development, but it's very, very important in being able to step into those big, scary dreams and continue to take those steps forward.
Yeah, because embodiment doesn't just mean like you're taking action, you're stepping in. It means like, no, your whole self, your spirit, your body are all connected together. So that movement is powerful, and you can see come through, because oftentimes we disconnect even when we have fears, and so by disconnecting, then nothing's going to happen for us. So I think it is important to have that embodiment, especially as we are trying to create our dreams. And when we are creating our dreams, what are we going to do? Like, there has to be this limiting belief breakage, basically,
Mm,
so we can
yeah,
step into that. So in your
yeah.
experience of even just developing leaders, having them
Mm,
really step into their dreams, like most of us, were, asked as a child what your dreams are, but we
mm,
forget now
yeah.
as like adult selves, well, I don't have a dream anymore. So
Yeah.
what is your advice on how to learn what your dream is again?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about my story on how I actually uncovered coaching, which will
Yeah.
give you a little bit of a context to my framework and the way that I work with women. So I just mentioned to you before we jumped on live, I
Yeah.
had my dream trip to America where I stayed in LA for 3 months and I lived with some of my friends over there who are in the music industry, who are in the fashion industry, and they are all absolutely living their purpose, like using their gifts to their fullest capacity, were so sure of themselves. And in Australia, we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome. So it's a cultural thing where it's kind of like an unspoken energy. It's like you don't want to outshine your mates. So being successful and being loudly successful, particularly growing up for me, was not something that was the done thing. So
Right.
coming into a space like LA where success and dreams and like going big is just like a daily occurrence, the energy for me was so enlightening. And it was so contagious as well. And then seeing my friends really just being willing to walk into any room and knock on any door and be in their gifts and be so sure of themselves and know that that was their path. And for me, watching that every day and being around all these people that were chasing their dreams, living their dreams, I was like, man, like I don't have I don't have
Yeah.
that. That is, I don't have it. And so it was really eye-opening for me to recognize that that was something I had always thought, when I find my purpose, I'll be really sure of myself and then everything will flow. But
Right.
I realized on that trip that actually you have to really believe in yourself so that when the purpose finds you, you are the space to hold it.
Yeah.
And so I came home from that trip in 2017 and I committed that year to being the best version of myself, whatever that looked like. I was like, I know that this confident version of me, I know this version that really believes in themselves fully is in there somewhere. Down
Right.
under all the stories, like you said, all the, forgotten dreams are in there somewhere. And I just need to be in the process of figuring it out. So I threw myself headfirst into personal development. And the first in-person workshop that I went to, it cracked this story that I'd held on to for my whole life that I wasn't good enough. That
Mm.
like, there was like a chink in it all of a sudden. And I was like,
Yeah.
hang on, I don't actually know if that's true. Like I can actually see where that came from. And now it doesn't seem so true. And so much shifted for me in that weekend. And, that's where I got a little sample of breath work as well. So much shifted for me in that weekend that I was like, oh my God, whatever just happened here was
Yeah.
amazing. And I need to do that for other
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
So that's literally how I found my purpose and my gifts and once I found that, everything made so much sense. So now when I'm working with people, one of the first things that I really get them to do, like you just said, we have all these dreams as children and they're forgotten. So one of the first things that I would really recommend is if you are not sure of your purpose or you're not really sure of what your dreams are anymore, is go back to that little version of yourself. Like, what did you love to do when you were a child? And for me, it was writing. Like, I literally thought I was going to be an author. And now, if you see my Instagram captions, it's like I'm a daily author. I'm like always
Yeah.
matching the captions. Going back to that space and actually giving yourself permission to do some creative writing, or, if it was soccer or, going out for hikes or making a mud pie, like whatever it was that you spent your time doing, like give yourself permission to play as a child for a day and go back into those dreams that you had and remind your inner child that it's safe to dream again. So that's one of the first things that I would say. The second thing that I would say to do is to get clear on what your top 5 values are. So it could be freedom, integrity, honesty, reliability, success, trust, whatever they are, getting clear on what your top 5 values are. And the third thing is to really figure out what you are good at. So what are your superpowers? And the way that I support people to find this out is I tell them first to identify what they believe their superpowers are first, because we want to try and self-identify. When we're in limiting belief and in doubt, often we're not really willing to self-identify what our strengths are. For me, for such a long time, I couldn't even acknowledge any strengths or gifts that I had. So first, start by acknowledging what you think are your top 3 innate gifts. And the reason sometimes these are really hard for us to find is because they're so ingrained in us that we don't even notice that they are gifts. So then I stretch you to ask 5 to 10 people what they think your top 3 best qualities are. And quite often in this process, you'll uncover that everyone will say the same thing or very similar things. And once you have your list and their list, try and find the through line and see what are your top 3 superpowers. And then the third thing is to really figure out what you just love doing. Like what's the stuff that you just love to do, like now as an adult, that you just lose track of time doing. Because what sort of happens is in this process, even though everything seems kind of abstract, when you can find the cross section of what you love doing, what you're really good at, so what are your superpowers and what you value, that little cross section of that little Venn diagram is your zone of genius. And when you can start kind of playing in all of these areas, so bringing your superpowers to life a little bit more, asking yourself, am I moving towards or away from my values with this? Is this going to bring me closer to my values or away from? And is this something that I love to do? When you start to sort of like play in all 3 of those areas, you start to get a little bit closer to whatever those gifts are and whatever that purpose is. So that's sort of like how I would recommend starting to find your dream again, is to allow yourself to just be in the joy, follow the breadcrumbs of joy.
I love that. I also love, like, what is your superpower? Because we think of it as like a superpower, but really, like, it is us. Like, we can become it. We just have to like find that groove where, like, you know, I actually can make like a career out of this, you know, or
Absolutely.
What I like to think is like, if money didn't matter, you know, if that was just taken away, what would you be doing? Because we're stuck in this belief, like, my success is because of my money, where that's actually no, it's more about the mission and the purpose you're doing it, and the success kind of follows. So if you're really passionate about something, then don't let those beliefs of like, that's nothing, that doesn't matter, like, don't let that stop you. So I think as you're discovering your purpose and your dream, ask yourself, if money didn't matter and I didn't have to go to a job every single day to support myself, what would I be doing? And then shift it and think of, okay, how can I take action in that now?
Absolutely.
So I think that's really important. So as we are discovering our dream, we figured out what our superpowers are. We figured out a clear idea of what our dream is. What do you recommend when we need to take that action now?
So I think in order to take action, you really have to connect to a why. And I think this is, you know, just to also piggyback on what you just shared, not only to ask yourself, what would you do if money didn't matter, but what would you do if you weren't afraid of criticism or judgment?
I love that.
Think this is something that we all butt up against as well. Initially, it's like, well, what will people think? I was, you know, you might have been told as a child, like, being an artist isn't profitable. And so you've got this story that you're not going to be able to make money from being an artist. So identifying, I guess, like, what is actually in the way of you taking action first. So figuring out, like, what are these stories that you have around why you can't, and whose stories are they? Are they even yours? Like, if you go back, did somebody else tell you that? And is that something that you really want to believe? And the second thing that I would say is, after you've kind of figured out what's in the way, I have a 4-step questioning process that you can use to start to redirect those thoughts and figure out what you want. And that is it true? And quite often the times your brain's going to go, yeah, like, I've got this entire lifetime of proof.
Right.
Is it useful or effective for me to believe? Probably not. And it's like, who would I be if I chose not to believe this thought? So similar to what you were saying, like, if you chose not to believe that being an artist wasn't profitable, or if you chose not to believe that you couldn't do it, or that you weren't enough, or that you weren't smart enough, or whatever it is, what would then be possible for you? And then what could you choose to believe instead to empower you forward? So pick a little mantra that's going to support you to keep taking that action. And then the other thing that I would just really like to say on that is that self-belief is created from action, not the other way around. I think a lot of the times we wait to be ready before taking action. And it's actually just taking that first step, because every single time that you take a step of action towards your dreams, it's going to build that self-belief and build what I like to call your portfolio of proof of why you can. But something that's, like I said at the start of this, something that's really going to keep you going is finding out your why, your bigger why. Why do you want this dream? Like, why do you want to help others? Why do you want to create art? Like, what is your why? What do you believe about what you're doing? Because if you don't have a strong enough why, those doubts are going to completely, the critic's going to jump into the driver's seat and just hijack the whole trip. So your strong why is going to keep you in the driver's seat and your inner critic in the back seat. So really tapping into what is your why, identifying what's in the way of that, really questioning what's in the way of that. Like, is it actually true, or is it a story that's been created? Whose story is it? And then just taking that very next step. I think that's another thing that kind of blocks us, is we want to see the whole staircase before we take the first step. But we need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. Just take the next best step and trust that each step is going to keep unfolding after that.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because if we don't take the action, then we're kind of waiting for it to happen on its own. It doesn't happen. We're the ones who need to make it happen for ourselves and show up that, we have to change that mindset and actually just do it anyway. I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm scared to do this interview. I'm going to do it anyway, because what happens is you unlock the door of possibilities. Everyone's listening to you now. They're hearing you speak, even if you're not even sure of what you're saying, but it's taking that first action step. Then the next one will trickle down, and it'll happen. And the staircase is only up. And, with fear, or failure, we don't want to fail, but the failure is not taking action. You can't fail. You'll just learn more of how to improve it and better it. So I think that's really important. I love what you were saying, that, you have to take that action, ask why it's important, all these different things you have to build that, little backpack of things that, support you, so you feel the safe, right?
And I think just being willing to fail forward. My first Facebook Live took me 7 hours to get on, because I was literally pacing around my house being like, oh my God, I've said I'm going live. Oh my God, like freaking out. I used to have to wear a turtleneck to like all my speaking events, because I would break out in a heat rash. Like my first podcast, like was a disaster. So it's like these things, you actually just keep getting better. I think we want to come out of the gate looking like experts, so that we get it right and aren't judged. Like that's kind of what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get it right 100%, have it all perfect, so that we have the least likelihood of being judged and criticized. But the thing is like, you're only going to get better if you start. And if you don't, then there's no opportunity to continue to grow and improve and get better. You don't become an expert on day one. It takes a long time. Like, I don't consider myself an expert yet. It's like, what is that, 20,000 hours to be a master? So we might have a few hours to go, and that's okay. It's like just being willing to be in the process and enjoying the journey, rather than trying to get somewhere and get it right.
I like that, because like, if you're not enjoying it, then why are you doing it in the first place, right? It wouldn't be your dream if you were enjoying the process. Or, we want to be successful. We want to have these amazing things, but how do we even do that if we're stopping ourselves? Right? You're not believing in it. So then it's not going to come true. You wish upon a star, but there's no action behind it. Then it's just a wish. It's not a dream. It's just a wish. Like, I wish. Well, sometimes you have to like create that for yourself. So I think that's important. So let's talk about the biggest thing here when we are talking on dreams. What do we do when we have a dream and we have this fear that we need to have the money for it? What do we need to do to overcome that? Because I believe that if you really want it, the money is just going to show up. And it's happened in my life. So how do we get past the money block that are stopping us from taking action in our dreams?
It's so funny you mentioned this, because I actually just did a post about this morning. Super nice. So when I was just sharing about that year in 2017, when I came home to figure it out and become this best version of myself, I came home from that trip with a maxed out credit card. Like, it was not an ideal time for me to step into anything. But I had 2 experiences very early on that allowed me to step into that and move past that mindset. And the first thing was, when I came back, I signed up to a 7-day free challenge with the hopes of winning a scholarship into a membership program. I did not win the scholarship. My bruised ego was like, well, I tried. Like, obviously it wasn't meant to be. I'm not going to bother then. And then, because I'd made this commitment to myself, I was like, well, hang on a minute. Like, that's something that you would have done. So what's something that you could choose to do now? And then I'm like, okay, well, I could choose to find a way to make it happen. And it was only going to work out to be like 20 Australian dollars a week. And I was like, okay, like, could I make my coffee at home? Like, could I not order out lunch? Like, how could I, find a way to make that happen for myself? So I said yes, and I did it. And then a few weeks later, this business program came up that only enrolls yearly. And I had seen it come up again, and I'd been looking at it for like 3 years. And I was like, oh, damn it. So I don't have the money. It's not the right time. I'll just enroll next year. And then I thought, no, hang on a minute. You have been saying that for 3 years. If you don't enroll now, you're going to be sitting in this exact same chair a year from now. I guarantee you still won't have your financial situation changed, because this has been the story for like 3 years. You're going to be in this exact same chair and nothing is going to have changed. So how can you find a way to make this happen? So I started asking myself better questions rather than like buying my excuses. I was like, how can I get resourceful to invest in my future? And that was like the real defining moment for me. So it's not that we have a lack of resources. We have a lack of resourcefulness, because there is always a way that we can find a way to invest in our dreams. It's just that up until now, we've been choosing to buy our limitations. So yes, I don't necessarily advocate like maxing out a credit card and getting into enormous amounts of debt to do so. If you choose to, amazing. If you don't want to, awesome as well. But, there's so many little ways. Like, you could start with like a really low investment into something that could come from selling out some old furniture or some old clothes that you don't have anymore. Like, start to ask yourself, how can I make it happen? Rather than just being like, it can't happen, and putting the words up immediately. And really, money blocks are also a worth block. So when we're looking at the reason of like, oh, well, I can't invest because I don't have the money, a lot of the times we're actually saying, well, I'm not worth that investment. I'm not worth finding a way. And to be honest, like, me making those 2 investments in myself and finding a way to make it happen was, before I even started the programs, was such a huge shift in my belief. And it's the same for the women that I work with now. It's like, as soon as you make that investment on yourself, like everything starts to shift, because you have said, I am worthy of this investment. I am worthy of change. I am worthy of the life that I want. I am worthy of my dreams. And, even for me right now, like, there is a project I'm working on at the moment that is going to be a huge investment. And so, the person that I'm working on this with, we're like, okay, so we're going to have to get an investor. We've never got an investor for anything. It's like, okay, so now like, research the process of how do we get an investor? Like, how do we make this happen? So there is always a way. It's just about asking yourself the right questions and believing that you are worth finding that way and finding that investment.
I think that's important. Like, we don't invest in ourselves, but we don't mind investing in others. And so I think that money is a heart issue. It's not so much of like a block to like, you don't deserve success. I mean, it can be, but it is like what you feel about yourself, you will spend money on it. Like, you can people buy shoes all the time. That's more than a car. But it's kind of just like depends on like what you feel you're worthy of. So really focusing in on, do I truly believe that I deserve to achieve my dreams, that I deserve the support? Do I deserve to show up for myself, or, let go of the fear of criticism? Once we do that and ask ourselves if we believe that, then that's where the questions start. Well, why do I believe that? Well, why do I think this? Then you let go and you move forward. And then it feels amazing on the journey of you like becoming, yourself that truly wants to take action in their dreams.
Totally.
So I think that's really important when
And
we're
also, yeah. And
you
just
have to
to
incorporate it.
100%. And also, like, if you don't think that you have the money to invest, like, track for a month, like, where your money is going. Like, write down everything where it's going. And, like, I guarantee we spend so much money on shit that we just don't even, like, need and that we don't even think twice about. And I think you would be quite surprised at how much money, if you made a few, like, little pivots and adjustments in your life, that you would be able to find that investment to make.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. Track it, find a way. There's always something you could do. Ask people, what can I do for you? Because I'm trying to like really succeed in my dreams. And I think that's really like, depending on what you need to do and how much it costs, or like, if you're really investing yourself into it, it's going to happen. It's going to show up. You just got to track it down, write out ways. And I think always writing it down will help you. Because if you don't write it down, then it's just a thought.
Yeah. And
Writing it down is the action also.
Yeah. And I mean, I got loans from family members when I was first starting out my dreams, because I was like, I need to make this happen. Like, I will pay you back. And I did. And, it's you can find a way. And, I've seen people that like GoFundMe and crowdfund their dreams as well. Like, there are so many different ways when you're just willing to step outside of yourself and like request support and get resourceful and find a way to make it happen.
Yeah. So everyone's listening. I hope you all take action in your dreams because you're worthy of it. We support you. Just really go back and listen to this interview so you can really think about what you want to do in your life, because I know everyone wants to pursue their dream, especially now. Everyone's either going back to work or still not working, not sure what they need to do in their lives. You're bored. Just figure out your dreams, because that's where it's going to propel you in the future. So thank you so much for doing this interview with me. Is there anything else you would like to say to everyone who is watching?
Just that also, if you really can't find that investment right now, there is so much free information, free valuable information on the internet already. So even if you're like, okay, I really cannot find a way right now, don't write it off entirely. Use the free resources that are available to you right now and take action on them, because even though a lot of the free resources are kind of a framework, there is action steps in all of them. Like, my podcast has action steps. So take the knowledge that you're gaining, like, don't just subscribe to YouTube University, actually take action. So whatever it is that you're learning, turn it into an action step for your life and start to just take those little steps forward and build the belief so that, and set that goal of having that investment money by 3 months or whatever it is, and start to make it happen. Like, there is literally so much information out there for you today for you to start. You don't need to necessarily make an investment today in order to make that happen. So don't let that hold you back either, but take the knowledge that you are learning and apply it. Like, even if there's something from this interview, take it and turn it into an action step in your life, because that's what's going to start to rebuild that self-trust with yourself. It's going to start rebuilding that belief, and it's going to start to move you forward. Like, momentum comes from taking action, and as soon as you get a little bit of momentum up, it just keeps snowballing. So just keep going with those next steps.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And one last thing, where can people find you on your social media?
So I spend most of my time on Instagram, which is at kirstenmorrison.co, and a little bit of time over on Facebook, which you can find me on the same thing, kirstenmorrison.co. And also my website is kirstenmorrison.co as well. And like you said, I have a podcast called The Ground Up, which is on Spotify and iTunes as well.
Thank you so much. So everyone who's listening or you're joining the replay, go ahead and say #replay so we can connect with you. And comment below, what is your dream? And we will support you in that. So we want to hear what you're doing, how we can support you, and really take action today sit with this information so you can really propel yourself to the future of becoming your best self. So we love you all. We're so grateful to be a part of your journey, and we can't wait to connect with you next time. Have a great rest of your day, guys.